Stop. You think you understand power? You don't. Because real power doesn't ask for control. It builds a system where control is automatic. You're not controlled by force. You're controlled by structure, and you don't even see it. The most powerful systems in the world don't stop you. They guide you without you realizing it. And once you're inside the system, you don't question it. You become part of it.
Power is not given. It is taken. It moves in silence. It controls perception. Psychology of power. Master the mind. Control the game.
Part 1. The Architecture of Structured Power. What if the most powerful leaders in the world are not the ones you hear the most, but the ones you barely notice? Not because they are weak, but because they don't need attention to control outcomes. Because real power does not need to announce itself. It operates quietly, systematically, relentlessly. And that is where this story begins. Before Xi Jinping became one of the most influential figures on the global stage, his rise was not explosive. It was not dramatic. It was not unpredictable. It was structured. And structure is the most underestimated form of power, because chaos draws attention, but structure creates control. There are leaders who disrupt systems, and there are leaders who become them. Xi Jinping represents the second, not a force against the system, but a force within it, and eventually, a force that shapes it. Because to control a system completely, you do not fight it. You understand it. You move within it. You align with it. Until separation disappears, until the system and the leader become indistinguishable. This is not fast power. This is strategic power, built through patience, because speed creates visibility, but patience creates inevitability. Xi's trajectory was not defined by moments. It was defined by positioning. One role, then another, then another. Each step, not isolated, but connected. Building influence quietly, expanding control indirectly, because direct control is visible, and visible power can be challenged. But indirect control is harder to see, and what is not seen is rarely resisted. This is the first principle of structured power. Control the system, not the surface. Because systems determine behavior, and behavior determines outcomes. At scale, this is where psychology becomes architecture, because the strongest leaders do not control individuals one by one. They design environments where behavior becomes predictable, where choices are guided, where outcomes are shaped without constant force. Because force is inefficient, it requires energy, it creates resistance, it exposes intention. But structure does the opposite. It reduces resistance, it hides control, it sustains itself. And sustainability is the true measure of power. Because power is not about reaching the top. It is about staying there, over time, across pressure, through change, and change is the greatest threat to any system, because systems depend on stability. But reality is constantly evolving, so the question becomes, how do you maintain control in a world that never stops changing? The answer is not rigidity, and it is not chaos. It is controlled adaptation, adjusting without losing alignment, evolving without losing structure, because once structure breaks, control collapses. This is why centralization matters, not as a symbol, but as a function, because decentralized systems create variation, and variation creates unpredictability. But centralized systems create alignment, clear direction, unified movement. And unified movement is power, not explosive power, sustained power, the kind that compounds, the kind that scales, the kind that does not rely on moments, but on continuity. Continuity is critical because consistency builds trust, not emotional trust. Structural trust, the kind where systems continue even without constant intervention. And when systems continue on their own, power has reached another level. It is no longer dependent on presence. It is embedded. And embedded power is the hardest to challenge because it is not visible. It does not need to be reinforced constantly. It exists within the system itself. This is the second principle. Build systems that sustain themselves. Because self-sustaining systems do not collapse easily. They adapt. They absorb pressure. They continue. And this is where Xi's leadership reflects something deeper than politics. It reflects design. A system designed for longevity, for scale, for continuity, not immediate impact. Long-term positioning, because short-term power reacts. Long-term power anticipates. It does not chase outcomes. It shapes conditions. And when conditions are shaped correctly, outcomes become predictable. This is the difference between control and influence. Influence is temporary. It changes behavior for a moment. Control is structural. It changes behavior permanently. And permanent change defines reality at scale. But no system is perfect, and no system is immune to pressure, because the larger the system, the greater the complexity. More variables, more risks, more potential fractures. And fractures are dangerous because they spread quietly, internally, until they become visible. And once they become visible, control is tested. This is why discipline must exist at every level. Not just leadership, but system-wide, consistency across all layers, because inconsistency creates doubt, and doubt is the beginning of instability. So everything must align. Messaging, behavior, structure, direction, all reinforcing the same pattern, all maintaining the same trajectory. Because trajectory defines power, not where you are, but where you are going. And Xi's model of power is built on trajectory. Long-term movement, decade-level thinking, strategic positioning, because when you operate on that level, time becomes an advantage, not a limitation. You are not reacting to the present, you are shaping the future. And shaping the future is the highest form of control, because if you control direction, you control outcome, eventually, inevitably. And that inevitability is what defines structured power. Not force, not noise, not visibility, but alignment. Over time, at scale, without interruption. And once that system is in place, power no longer needs to be asserted. It simply continues. Part 2. Maintenance, perception, and expansion of structured power. Because building power is only the beginning. Maintaining it is where real control is tested. Because once a system is established, it begins to face pressure, not just from outside, but from within. People adapt, structures evolve, variables increase, and complexity is the hidden threat to power. Because the more complex a system becomes, the harder it is to control. More movement, more variation, more unpredictability. And unpredictability breaks structure. So the system must respond, not by becoming rigid, but by becoming more precise, because precision reduces chaos. And chaos is the enemy of structured power. This is where maintenance becomes psychological, because maintaining power is not about force. It is about alignment, constant alignment between system and perception, because perception is what people experience, not the system itself. And if perception remains stable, the system appears stable, even if complexity increases. This is the third principle: control perception to sustain structure. Because people do not respond to reality directly. They respond to what they believe reality is. And belief can be shaped, not instantly, but consistently, through repetition, through clarity, through structure. Because repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates acceptance. And acceptance creates stability. At scale, this is why messaging must remain consistent, not emotional, not reactive, but structured, aligned with the system, reinforcing the same direction. Because inconsistency creates doubt, and doubt spreads quietly until it becomes collective. And collective doubt destabilizes everything. So doubt must be prevented, not suppressed, prevented through clarity, through repetition, through alignment. This is how perception becomes controlled, not forced, but guided over time. And once perception aligns with structure, power becomes invisible, not because it disappears, but because it becomes normal. This is the fourth principle: normalize the system. Because what is normal is not questioned, it is accepted. And acceptance is the strongest form of control. Because it requires no enforcement, it sustains itself. But normalization alone is not enough, because the world outside the system does not remain constant. Global interaction increases, information flows expand, comparisons emerge. And comparison creates awareness, and awareness creates friction. So the system must expand, not physically, but strategically. Expanding influence, expanding positioning, expanding control over direction. Because expansion is not always about size, it is about reach. Influence beyond borders, impact beyond visibility. Because modern power is not limited by geography, it is shaped by perception, global perception. And global perception affects internal stability, because external pressure becomes internal tension, and tension must be managed, not avoided. Because avoidance creates weakness, but overreaction creates instability. So once again, precision. Always precision. Because every move affects the system. And when the system is large, small changes create massive effects. This is where leadership becomes calibration. Adjusting signals, adjusting responses, adjusting intensity based on conditions. Because power is not static, it is dynamic, constantly adapting, constantly recalibrating, but always maintaining alignment. Because alignment is everything. Without alignment, the system fragments, and fragmentation leads to instability, not immediately, but inevitably. This is why discipline must exist at every level, not just leadership, but system-wide, consistency across all layers, because inconsistency creates cracks, and cracks expand under pressure, over time, until they break structure. So everything must reinforce the same direction, the same pattern, the same trajectory, because trajectory defines power, not the present, the future. And this is where Xi's model becomes distinct. It is not focused on immediate outcomes, it is focused on long-term direction, decades, not moments. Because when you think in decades, you do not react, you position, you shape conditions, you guide systems. And when systems are guided correctly, outcomes follow. not instantly, but inevitably. This is the difference between influence and structured power. Influence is reactive. Structured power is predictive. It anticipates movement. It prepares for pressure. It adjusts before disruption occurs. And that is why it sustains itself. Because it does not wait to respond. It evolves continuously, without losing structure, without losing alignment, without losing control. This is the fifth principle. Adapt without breaking the system. Because adaptation is necessary, but uncontrolled adaptation creates instability. So adaptation must be guided, measured, aligned with the core structure, always. And this is where the system reaches its highest level, when it no longer depends on constant correction, because it has become self-regulating, self-adjusting, self-sustaining at scale. And once that happens, power is no longer visible, but it is stronger than ever, because it is embedded in systems, in behavior, in perception, and embedded power is the hardest to challenge, because it does not need to assert itself. It simply continues, relentlessly, consistently, over time. Part 3. Risk, limits, and the future of structured power. Because no system, no matter how structured, is immune to pressure, not permanent, not absolute, only sustained for as long as it can adapt. And that is where power reveals its limits, not in moments of strength, but in moments of tension. Because every system eventually faces resistance, not always visible, not always immediate, but inevitable. Because reality does not remain fixed, it evolves, slowly, then suddenly, and structured systems must constantly manage that evolution without losing control. This is the paradox. The more structured the system, the harder it is to change. But the harder it is to change, the greater the pressure becomes. And pressure never disappears. It accumulates. Internally, externally, through complexity, through scale, through time, until it reaches a point where it must be released, or it destabilizes the system. This is where rigidity becomes a risk, because rigidity creates resistance, and resistance creates tension, and tension creates instability. But too much flexibility creates something else: loss of structure, loss of alignment, loss of control. So, once again, balance, always balance, between stability and adaptation, between control and adjustment, between structure and evolution. Because power at this level is not about dominance, it is about equilibrium, maintaining alignment while navigating change. And this is where time becomes critical, because time exposes everything: weakness, inconsistency, misalignment, not immediately, but inevitably, because over time, pressure reveals structure, and structure determines survival. This is why long-term systems must constantly recalibrate, not dramatically, but subtly, adjusting direction, adjusting response, adjusting perception, because perception must remain stable, even when reality shifts. And that is one of the most important insights. Power is not about control in reality. It is about controlling how reality is experienced, because experience shapes belief, and belief shapes behavior, and behavior sustains the system. But when perception and reality diverge too far, tension increases, and that tension must be managed carefully, precisely, because miscalculation creates instability, and instability spreads through systems, through perception, through behavior, until alignment is lost, And once alignment is lost, power fragments, not instantly, but progressively. Which brings us to the final principle. Power is not permanent. It is maintained continuously, relentlessly, through structure, through perception, through adaptation. And the moment that maintenance weakens, power begins to decline, not visibly at first, but internally, until the system can no longer sustain itself. This is the reality of all structured power. Not failure, but limitation, because no system can remain perfectly aligned forever. Not under pressure, not across time, not in a changing world. So the question becomes not how power is built, not even how it is maintained, but how it evolves without losing itself, because evolution is unavoidable, and systems that cannot evolve eventually collapse. Not from weakness, but from rigidity. But systems that evolve too much lose structure. And without structure, there is no control. So once again, balance, always balance, between past and future, between stability and change, between control and adaptation. And this is where the future of power is defined, not by strength, not by authority, but by flexibility within structure, the ability to adapt without breaking alignment, the ability to evolve without losing control, the ability to sustain under pressure, over time, at scale. Because in the end, power is not a position, it is a system that must be continuously managed, continuously reinforced, continuously adjusted. And once you understand that, you no longer see power as absolute. You see it as conditional, dependent on structure, dependent on perception, dependent on alignment. And that changes everything, because now, power is no longer something distant. It is something that can be understood, analyzed, deconstructed. And once it is understood, it reveals its final truth. Power does not last because it is strong. It lasts because it is sustained. And the moment it stops being sustained, everything changes